Well now, James, they've changed the regulations concerning the airboxes and the wings, and yet you're still extremely fast. How do you do it?
Big balls.
On the financial side and the job security side, nothing to do with danger.
James Hunt at least has done what was expected of him at the start of this race. He's got clear.
Before Formula One became corporate, before drivers were media-trained athletes, there was one man who lived faster, harder and louder than anyone else. A world champion, a playboy, a rebel. His name was James Hunt. He smoked heavily, partied constantly, fought drivers and officials, and somehow became one of the most beloved champions in Formula One history. But behind the wild image was a driver carrying fear, pressure and the obsession to become world champion at any cost. This is the story of the last true rock star of Formula One. James Hunt was born in 1947 in Surrey, England, into a wealthy middle class family, but from the beginning Hunt was different. He was hyperactive, rebellious, competitive and constantly clashing with authority. Even as a teenager, he hated being controlled. At 18 years old, Hunt attended a race at Silverstone. From that moment on, he decided he would become Formula One world champion. There was just one problem: nobody believed in him. Not his family, not racing insiders, not even many of his teammates. Hunt worked odd jobs to fund his racing career and entered Formula Ford with barely enough money to survive. And earlier on, he crashed constantly, so often that he earned the nickname Hunt for Shunt. But despite the chaos, one thing was obvious: James Hunt was unbelievably fast. Everything changed for James Hunt when he met Lord Alexander Hesketh. The wealthy man created one of the wildest teams in Formula One history, and he called it Hesketh Racing. Champagne flowed endlessly, parties were legendary, and the team looked more like a rock band than a racing operation. Formula One laughed at them until they started winning. In 1975, Hunt delivered Hesketh Racing its first and only Formula One victory at the Dutch Grand Prix. Suddenly, the reckless Englishman wasn't a joke anymore. He was a superstar. Tall, blonde, charismatic, dangerous. James Hunt became Formula One's first true celebrity driver, and off the track the stories became legendary. Heavy drinking, endless partying, thousands of romantic relationships. Hunt became the symbol of 1970s Formula One. But underneath the image was a driver terrified of failure. According to multiple accounts, Hunt would sometimes vomit before the race from nerves, because despite the lifestyle, he desperately wanted one thing: to become world champion.
Behind the eccentric antics of Hesketh Racing, the team and their driver were fiercely competitive. Hunt was now up against the world's top drivers, and the pressure to perform was greater than ever.
He would often be sick at the start of a race.
In 1976, Hunt got his opportunity. After a certain driver left McLaren, Hunt took his seat, and waiting for him was the most disciplined driver in Formula One, Niki Lauda. They couldn't have been more different. Hunt was instinctive, emotional, explosive, whereas Lauda was a much more calculated driver. One lived like a businessman, the other lived like a rock star, and together they created one of the greatest rivalries in sports history. Lauda dominated early in the season Ferrari. Then came one of the biggest crashes in Formula One history. Lauda's Ferrari burst into flames. He nearly died. Most drivers would never race again. Lauda returned just 6 weeks later, burned, injured, barely recovered. Meanwhile, Hunt fought back his position in the championship. The season came down to the final race in Japan. Horrendous rain, zero visibility. Lauda looked at the conditions and made a decision it wasn't worth dying for. He retired from the race after just 2 laps. Hunt stayed out, sliding across a soaked track, pushing the car to the absolute limit. He finished third, enough to win the Formula One World Championship by a single point. James Hunt had done it. The Rebel became world champion.
But Hunt drove on, knowing this was his big chance. He was immediately out in front and knew that with Lauda out of the race, he only had to finish third to become world champion.
All I could do was drive as fast as I could and pass any car that I saw.
With just 2 laps to go, Hunt was in 4th place.
He's third now. It looks as if it's going to be Britain's new world champion.
Hunt held on to 3rd place past the finish line. It was enough to make him the new world champion.
And there, James Hunt, our new world champion.
But strangely, winning the title changed Hunt. The hunger disappeared. He later admitted he never truly enjoyed racing, and Formula One itself was changing. Drivers were becoming more professional, teams were becoming more corporate, the wild 1970s lifestyle was fading away. James Hunt no longer fit the future of the sport. By 1979, exhausted, he walked away from Formula One at just 31 years old. But Hunt wasn't finished with racing. He reinvented himself as a BBC commentator alongside Murray Walker, and surprisingly he was brilliant. Sharp, honest, fearlessly opinionated. Fans loved him all over again. Even decades later, Formula One fans still praise Hunt's commentary for how accurate and entertaining it was.
Side at any moment. Marshall waving the blue flag at him, and that's allowed Mansell to catch right up, and Nakajima is once again proving that he is incompetent and not equipped to be a Grand Prix driver properly, and I think Piquet's in some sort of trouble. Piquet seemed to slow coming out of that, maybe he missed a gear.
In private, Hunt slowly changed. He became calmer, more reflective. He focused on his children and began stepping away from the destructive lifestyle that once defined him. Then, in June 1993, Hunt proposed to his girlfriend. She said yes. Just hours later, James Hunt suffered a massive heart attack at his home in London. He was only 45 years old. Formula One was stunned. Even Niki Lauda, his greatest rival, was devastated. Lauda later said James was the most charismatic personality Formula One had ever had.
Announced that he wanted to go to bed, which was a bit early. I mean, he wasn't feeling 100%.
Called his old friend Chris Jones, complaining of chest pains.
Didn't think much of it. We were all getting on a bit. And then he said, oh, it's going away, that's fine. I said, have another vodka as a joke. And we never heard another word.
James Hunt was killed by a massive heart attack. He was 45.
The legend, James Hunt. Explain that, if you don't mind.
Hunt I knew from Formula 3 days. We were going up the same development, more or less, trying to be a Formula 1 driver. So we liked each other because we were doing it together. Then I got my first chance in Ferrari, which I blew him off in a way because he was suffering of getting a proper Formula 1 car. Nevertheless, we stayed in a very good relationship. When he won the championship by half a point in front of me, I said to him, I'm more happy that you are the world champion than any of the other guys. So, and that really shows how good our relationship has been.
James Hunt represented something Formula One may never see again. A driver who lived entirely on instinct, flawed, reckless, brilliant. He wasn't perfect, but that's exactly why people still remember him. Because James Hunt didn't just race Formula 1 cars, he burned through life at full speed. Let me know in the comments, do you think we'll ever see anyone like James Hunt compete in Formula 1 again? And I really appreciate if you hit that like button and the subscribe button, and I'll keep making more videos like this one.